And we've got Lisa Worthy here too. I'm glad you got the link.
Oh,
So, welcome to everyone. We're so glad you're here for Bring Your Own Project. Hope you're enjoying the OER conference. There's some really amazing facilitators at these workshops and some great content. And I hope that it is offering you things that you can make good use of in your classes that you teach or in the other work that you do. So the way we did this last time is we would very much like to meet each of you, the participants, and get to know a bit about you. But first, if it's okay, we'll just kind of introduce ourselves to you just so you know a little bit about like where our experience in OER is and kind of who we are. Hopefully that sounds good. I'll start and then I'll just hand it off to one of our other co-facilitators here. So I'm Jeff Sanger. I teach English composition and creative writing at Glendale Community College. I also co-direct the honors program over there. I've been using open educational resources for almost 5 years now. My English composition classes are 100% free at this point. I have a great press book that I found. I use Writing Commons and also lots of popular articles for those. Anyhow, I do think OER is an important tool. I love to see when faculty members are involved in it, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have about implementation along with our other great facilitators. Let's go over to Eric next, if that's okay, Eric, because you're next to me on the screen here.
Sounds good. My name is Eric Prosser. I am the Engineering and Entrepreneurship Librarian at Arizona State University in Tempe. Previously, before I came to ASU, I was at Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. And while there, I was the campus copyright librarian and responsible basically for starting their OER program at Fort Lewis. At ASU, I don't have as much OER in my job description, but I do still heavily promote it and encourage its use, especially in the STEM fields. And I'm happy to answer any questions about, incorporating OER in a STEM setting or grant writing for OER. Candace, why don't I pass it off to you? You're next to me.
Hi, my name is Candy Kamlodi. I teach critical reading, history, and education at Gateway Community College. We're one of the smaller schools, so we wear bunches of hats. I've been teaching with OER, let's see, probably 4 or 5 years also. I was talking about it a little earlier. What really sort of drove me toward it was teaching history with primary source materials, because students found history textbooks to be somewhat boring, but they find, the pension applications that Revolutionary War soldiers filled out, telling their stories about fighting the British, much more interesting. And so that's sort of how I got in. I got the badge just this fall by taking all the trainings through Maricopa. So I'm still sort of figuring out all of the ways that I followed the rules correctly and broke the rules and getting all that corrected and fixed.
Well, I think I'll just jump in maybe and do a quick introduction. So I'm Lisa Worthy, and I apologize for being late. I had to find my link. I'm sure that is something that we have all struggled with over the last 10 months. So I teach psychology at Glendale Community College, and I teach statistics. So my statistics course, as well as our lab, I'm using all open resources. And I teach culture and psychology, and we're also using all open resources for that class. I received some of the Maricopa Million grants to, me and some other colleagues received the grants to put together those materials. So I have some experience kind of creating things brand new, and also reusing, revising, to put things together into a package that works individually for each faculty member. So that's a little bit about me.
Guys, I'm Stephanie Green. I'm here to help moderate the chat for you guys, but I'm nutrition faculty at Phoenix College and also created a OER textbook for my nutrition students, the 100 level course, if you have any questions about Pressbooks.
Stephanie, I actually have a question for you. Maybe I'll sort of get it started. Because we had a question about this last week about the H5P. Did you include some of that in your press book? Just so people attending might know. Okay.
Yes, I absolutely did. It's very easy to use. There's tutorials, no problem. Even my students could do it with very little instruction.
Brianna, are you there?
I am.
You sort of started the thing, so I guess you don't have to if you don't want to. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
No, I'm one of the program coordinators for the MCLI. I'm just kind of the behind the scenes person. The keynote speakers that you hear speak, it's my job to pay them. And then I kind of help with like the logistics and the technology stuff if that's needed. So yeah, hi, thanks for having me here. Okay, I'm gonna let you get to your meeting.
Okay, I'm not sure John's here yet. He's going to be stopping in soon. John, are you here?
I can see, well, maybe he might still be away, but I can see him on the screen.
Yeah, he had to step away. Carla, did you want to say any words here before we introduce the participants?
Welcome, everyone. Sorry I was late. I was supposed to be the host of this meeting, but I had told Debbie last week that I have another workshop that I have to do for my own college. I would only be the chat monitor today and help out in any other way. But I'm just excited to be here and looking forward to hearing all the wonderful things that the faculty are doing. And yeah, I've been helping with the back-end logistics with the MCLI on this. So just happy to be here to help and just listen in. And I know that Stephanie and Lisa have both been doing amazing work because I've seen their work already. So I'm excited to see what else you all can bring to it because I know you are all the experts. So we're excited.
Carla, real quick, do you want me to make you the host or do you want me to stay as the host?
No, go ahead and stay since you're recording and everything. I don't want to mess that up. No worries.
Not a problem.
I do not need to be host. I will take a break for a change. I'm the host.
Do it. So I got it from here. Okay.
Very good. All right. Well, I think we should hear from our participants because this is kind of your show. We're hoping that you've got some questions that we can maybe help out with, and we're hoping you can tell us a bit about your projects that you're working on or your ideas about OER. But maybe first, if you could just tell us your name and what you do and what your level of experience is with OER, if you think that's okay. Catherine, did you want to start? Would that be all right? Now, I'm a little worried because some of the facilitators, myself included, had trouble getting our audio and video going when we initially joined. Catherine, are you there? How about Lynn? Oh.
Hi.
Yes, there she is.
Hi. I'm Lynn Bryzak at GCC, and I am new to OER. So I teach a Introduction to Multiculturalism course, and I've been teaching it just for a couple of years. I've been teaching it only online. A colleague put together a Gold Star course. It's great. But it's getting, some of the material is getting a little bit older. I really like our textbook too. It's an inexpensive textbook because it's older. It's from 2015. Oh, am I supposed to say all these things now, Jeff, or just?
No, you just keep going. That's perfect.
Okay. So the book's a little bit older. It's from 2015, but I think it's great for a counseling class, which is my discipline, because it's a lot about self-awareness and skill development. And it's not learning about different cultural groups necessarily, but it's about how each person interacts with others. And then it teaches some definitions like racism and discrimination and things like that as well too. But I'm intrigued by OER because I've been supplementing with like stuff on Channel 8. There's that whole American Portrait series, which I've really loved, and I've had my students look at some of that, and then all these kinds of things we're doing in the district and the OER stuff. There's just been really great material, and I want to figure out how to incorporate that into the material that students read, where I'm not bound to an $80 or $100 textbook, whatever, but I can really keep it current. So like I said, I'm just very new to this. I reached out to other people teaching this course in the district. Rio pretty much does just articles and stuff. A couple of other schools use books, but at PVCC, they like their book, but that book is not getting updated either. So Kathy Mendoza at PVCC is interested in helping with this project. So we'll see.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think one of the big things about, and I guess I'm sure other folks have responses to you about that too. But one of the great things about OER using it is the opportunity to collaborate with other faculty, right? And I think that's just that mod Pressbook grant that's going on right now was designed to encourage collaboration across colleges, and with the idea being that you've got different people teaching the same content at different colleges that can work together to develop that. And I think a lot of us, myself included, started out with OER by supplementing content, right? Like by filling gaps that were there, or substituting for sections we didn't like in a textbook. And then, like you, we were intrigued by the idea of, going all the way, so to speak, and completely replacing the textbook. And I do think that is very doable in most, if not all, disciplines. And we can talk more about, I think, some different tools to help you with that, but I'll let somebody else weigh in first.
I actually just dumped something in the chat for you, Lynn. When we were creating our materials for the Psych and Culture textbook, we pulled from communication textbooks. I pulled from anthropology textbooks. We pulled from some international sources. So one of the places that I really like, it's on the resource list that Jeff shared, but it's University of Minnesota's Open Textbook Library. Maybe you can maybe you don't have to recreate, but maybe you can find some chapters that could easily just be used to create your own press book. So maybe that will help inspire you to kind of think about how you want to reorganize things.
Remind me to Pressbook. I know I read something, but I'm not. Tell me what that is again, please.
I can speak to that. I created a Pressbook is a platform that you can create. So if you find all of these OER sources, you can put them all into your very own book. Your students can contribute to the book as well with Pressbooks. It's just a platform that Maricopa has that as faculty, you are available to use it and search on it as well and adapt other books or clone other books on it. It's just a great, easy to use tool that will help you function as a new textbook that you could create a chapter at a time. Your students could create chapters at a time, but I'm happy to go into that in more detail later on.
I did mine the old-fashioned way, and we wrote our textbook, which I am in no way saying you should do. But if you can find the chapters that you want in existing materials, it is really easy to create your own press book. You can just copy and paste everything into a Word doc, get your styles set up, and then create your own textbook. And I also just, as a side, I have students who they still like paper. So you can turn it into a PDF. I don't know why they would want to do that, but they do. And so it's across all kinds of platforms with just clicking a couple buttons. So maybe just something to think about.
So if you get chapters from other places, then that's all OER kind of material.
If the sources are already OER, it does make your life a lot easier. For some of the things we wanted to add, then we had to go to primary sources to create some things. But if it's already existing, and you can just check the Creative Commons copyright, yeah, then most of the time it's very simple.
Okay.
But
And
Jeff and Stephanie, you guys have done some of that, right?
Yeah, kind of a visual person. I was going to show you an example, Lynn, but do you have a question first? You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was curious how this is different from like Canvas Commons. I'm a real neophyte, you guys, so I'm asking probably really basic questions. But you know, Canvas Commons, doesn't that have stuff that anybody can use too?
Right. Yeah, you're asking, you're sort of starting to get into license questions, and yeah, stuff that's on Canvas Commons, my understanding for the most part, it's openly licensed content from other instructors where you can go in and download their course and use as much or as little of it as you want, even have that cool little rating system so that you can hopefully find the really good ones. The press books, I think one of the appeals of those is that, like Lisa was saying, it kind of looks like a textbook, right? For people who are familiar with that. And now, while Lisa and Stephanie have they developed their own, right? I'm working on one right now as part of this grant, but I've never done that before. And in the past, what I did was I found a press book that other folks created and used that in my course. So really quick, I want to take a bunch of time here because we need to hear from other people too. But I just wanted to show you because like I said, I'm like a real visual person. Hopefully, can you see that? Now I know you're not teaching English composition, but I guarantee you they've got something like this. I don't know if it's going to be exactly what you want for your course, but there's definitely, psychology and counseling oriented press books out there that you could potentially borrow some content from. And the way this is set up, you can go in here and you can go into the contents and you can break these out and just use individual pages. I don't use this whole book in my class, and I certainly don't use it in a linear fashion. I just cut and paste it onto different Canvas pages to make it approachable to students. Now, the trick, though, is this right here. This is the Creative Commons licensing. And if you want to use something from a press book, you have to be attentive to how they have it licensed. Do you have any experience with the Creative Commons licensing symbols and meanings?
Not really. I did one thing with Cheryl Colin that we put on the Creative Commons, but she really did more of the technological part of it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, she's great with that stuff. So there are some materials in that resource list that we compiled that are specifically about Creative Commons licensing. So basically each of these symbols means something. And so this means that it's licensed. The little person means it's by. The line through the money sign means that no cost, non-commercial. And the little arrow means it can be remixed. And so basically what these authors are saying is that as long as you give them credit and you're not making money off of their content, you are free to kind of chop it up and reuse it as any way you like in your own class. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and a press book, somebody was saying it's a platform, but is it just Maricopa? Like all these things are just Maricopa, or?
No.
No.
Yeah, the mod press books are just Maricopa, but like these authors here are from, oh gosh, I forget. They're from like Cleveland State or something like that. And there's some resources in that guide, and I'm sure some of the folks here could probably even just, type it in the chat if they know a different one. But there's resources that have all the different press books, and then you can kind of look in there. You can try to find content for your course in there.
Lynn, I put the link to the Pressbook directory in there. So if you look at the chat, they're still working on it, but it's pretty much, and you can filter through it. If you take a look at that, that's where you can find all the Pressbooks, and you'll see the licensing. You'll see if it has any H5Ps in it. All of that information will be there, and then you can just choose that. And so then the Maricopa one is like, if you like a textbook that you want to just clone over, that's when you can go in and make it your own. You can include it in Canvas. There's a lot of great things you can do with that. But I put the link in there if you wanted to click on that and check it out.
Okay, thanks, Carla. And will this chat be saved, or should I be clicking and opening everything so that then I can save it?
We will be saving it, and it will show up in the recording.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But Jeff has a great strategy of just copying the whole thing and saving it, which I thought was a brilliant hack. So maybe you want to think about that too.
Copying the whole book, Lisa, and then saving it so that then he can
Just
pull out
copying the whole chat. Yeah, just copying the whole chat with all of our
copying the
links
whole
in it.
chat. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah.
And Lynn, I just want to add one more thought about something you said, that, you know, the difference between Canvas Commons and the Pressbook book that you create is that while that's available, you know, indefinitely, the Pressbook will live on indefinitely, and as the students go on to or transfer to the other careers, it'll always be available, and it'll be updated automatically, so they'll always have access to that and not have to log into Canvas Commons to get it if your book is made public, which you can choose to do or not do.
Okay, thank you. I don't necessarily mean to be taking everybody's time, but am I the only one with a project? All of you, I have all you helpers, and I'm the only one with the project. This is awesome, but you don't get better than this, do you?
You should leave here with the thing completely done, or we're not worth our salt, Lynn.
Another place that I've used to look for materials called Merlot. And that might be I do a lot of things with history and education, and just thinking about diversity, there's a lot of humanities style textbooks in Merlot. Let me see if I can grab the
and
link
Lynn,
for
that,
you.
that link is shared in the OER link that Jeff shared with us earlier at the beginning of our chat. So it is listed on there. So there's a ton of information on that first document, the Google document he shared with us.
And I think Carla just dropped it in the chat if you want to take a look.
But that might be one that I know, like, I just did like a quick search that said diversity, and it said it had like over 300 results of materials that you could look at just with diversity. And they could be in all various different kinds of textbooks, or they could just be articles, or but that's kind of a nice, I think when you start with OER, it's kind of good to go to some of the bigger places where there's tons of material to look through before you sort of get in the weeds of just looking for one article here and one article there, which eventually you get to that where you're like, okay, I have this one hole and this one competency I need to cover, so I've got to find an article on just this one little topic. But that's sort of at the end of your adventure. At the beginning, it's like, okay, where is there just like a whole book that I can kind of start with and see what I need from it. And you end up using them the same way you use a paper textbook, because usually you use your paper textbook out of order and you skip chapters, or you tell students only read page 234 to page 261, skipping the section, right? Like that's basically what you're doing, but it gives you the chance to kind of do it. Instead of telling them read these pages and skip this section, you can physically just pull that section out.
Yeah, great. Jeff, when I tried to click on that Google Doc, it said what did it say? It said it didn't exist or something like that. The one that you put in the chat at the beginning. I just need to let my dog in. She's.
I'll just put it back in the chat.
Hey, Lynn, Did you receive a notification? Did it say something about an external site warning with a continue button? Okay, that's perfectly fine. It's just letting you know that you're leaving your WebEx. That's
Well,
all sort of doing quotes, and I was like, my camera's not on. It just lets you know that you're leaving the WebEx environment and going to an outside site.
well,
So
I
if
did
you
that,
go
but even after I did that, I got that message. Like I left the environment, but then I got the message. The message said,
Yeah, I got the same message and then I was able to access it.
yeah,
oh,
if you
Did you click continue, Lynn? Did you click on
I
it?
did hit the continue. I did hit the continue. I gotta go back and find that now. I might have just, I have that open textbook library open. I'll click on the Google again and see what I get. The one that Jeff posted.
I think I actually just copied the link and then opened up a browser window and popped it in there and then it opened up for me.
Okay.
that works too.
Okay. Okay. I feel awkward, like everybody's watching me.
No, copying and pasting it works well because then you avoid WebEx trying to control your life because you know how WebEx tends to like take over your speaker, take over your microphone, change your picture. It does all of these horrible things where you're like, why?
That.
Yeah. See, it says the file you have requested does not exist. Make sure you have the correct URL in Google Docs, but I'll try copying and pasting. And Peaches wants to say hello. Let me just introduce Peaches. This is Peaches. She wants to say hello to everybody. Hello.
Oh.
Go.
I put a PDF version in there too. I'm not sure if that'll
I
work
see.
out for you or not.
Okay. Yeah. Clicking on that.
I don't know if it will.
While you're working on that, Lynn, too, the other thing I would say is don't underestimate the materials that are available through our library, too, and that actually can embed into Canvas pretty easily. Because actually some of those are not OER, but because they're in our library and the students pay the fee and we pay for them, you have access to them and can put them in your courses. So like for my critical reading course, I use a lot of library stuff, and you might find that especially helpful because it seems to me like in the diversity and multiculturalism class, you might want some really, really up-to-date resources. I mean, you know, maybe put in an article that's just from the newspaper from this week or whatever, and you can do that through our library. And within Canvas, I don't know if you click on those, the little icons that just let you embed it directly from the library. But the library also has really good streaming media too that can be really up to date, because I call it Netflix for nerds with my students. Because I'm like, if you can use Netflix, you can use this. It's Netflix for nerds. Like, use Netflix for nerds. And that seems to have gotten them understanding what streaming media means, because that's confusing to them, but they know they can jump on Netflix and watch something. I'm like, you can jump on this and watch it just like you would Netflix. So I think some really up-to-date resources might be in the library for you for that your particular topic that you're looking for.
Candace, this is John. I apologize actually for coming in really late to this. I was John Doherty at NAU. I am with the library at NAU, and we're just meeting with our new president that just got announced this morning. So that's where I was. But Candace, what she was saying, I can't emphasize that more. One of the projects that we just did is, it's not OER exactly, no, but we are paying some money. Sometimes we're buying, and you may talk to your library about just what level of databases are they purchasing. And hidden in there are gems. We just ran, I went to our bookstore and said, give me the list of all of your required materials that have been adopted for Spring 21. And we ran them against our books that we have in our collection. And we calculate that we're probably, and then contact the faculty and said, oh, we have this ebook. And if the 95 or 96 on faculty or courses that we contacted use the ebook versus with unlimited seats versus the print book, just this academic year, we will save over $500,000 of student costs with just a very simple search. So I'd say, Lynn, it would be just to contact your librarian and say, do you guys even have this? And it may be too that if, Candace talking about current stuff, but sometimes it may be like the last edition. And if you're not really 100%, I need to have the 8th edition. It has to be. That comma that was changed on page 546 so that we can spend another $150 is not essential to me. I might go with 7 or 6, and then it's the exact same text virtually, and you can then adopt that. And your library, it's behind a firewall. They just click on it and it's there. And similarly with the streaming media, we do it with any DVD we purchase. We also figure out a way to put it into our Kaltura instance, which then you can do. For us, we're still on Blackboard. We haven't gotten onto Canvas yet. Hopefully it'll happen soon. But we just go click, click, it's there. And then you get 2 full semesters at least where they can access and run that media item. Again, your library's paying for the broadcasting rights, so use it. If they own it, they can stream it. Yeah. By the way, we got a really cool president. I just sat in a faculty senate meeting for the first time in 3 years, and people were laughing. So yeah, NAU is going to go. We're going to be really cool here. Yeah.
I kind of want to know his name now.
Oh, okay. Cruz. What was his first name again? Jose Cruz. What? Jose Luis Cruz. Yeah, let me put it in there. He's coming from CUNY. Did I put it in the? Yes, there it is. Yeah. He got hired by the board last night, so that's how I knew he is. So someone was saying, yeah, you've only been here 24 hours. I said, no, 14. So yeah. Another thing that we did that is, again, not quite OER, but it is kind of more affordable, is we went out to our deans in Health and Human Services and SBS, and this might be something to try maybe in your college as well, and created a crowdfunding initiative where we tried to raise money, and we identified courses that we said, no, if we can raise $150, we can buy unlimited seats to this textbook. And so we actually ended up raising about $7,500. And so far, we've only spent about $1,000 of it, and we're already on about $15,000 of savings. So part of the challenge of that, of course, is as you're looking at your texts, and I apologize again for missing the first 20 or so minutes, is if your text is a Pearson or a Cengage, and one of those $250 textbooks, they don't want you to have access to an online version unless you buy, as a student, their saran wrap sealed version of it. So one of the challenges that I'm having and talking with our faculty is maybe saying, you know, that's a really cool textbook and I know why you're using it, but you maybe want to go look for something else. And I strongly appreciate, and that's where I put my librarians on deck and said, okay, we're trying to talk faculty into doing this, so we have to step up and help faculty find those resources. So that might be another option too, is go talk to your librarians and say to them, this is the chapter that I want to replace. And it's hard to replace a textbook chapter with 4 academic articles because it's missing that synthesis piece. But they might be able to find some of these other resources that your colleagues here have been talking about that are very specific to that discipline. It's tough, but in some areas, but we can usually, dig enough to find something. Now, they might be dig for you, actually.
Lynn, the librarian at GCC, who is I would suggest you use as your OER contact, would be Jose Asinagua. He co-chairs the OER committee at GCC. He was actually here for this session last week. He's really great, and I think for that is probably a good place to start for librarians for the kind of things that that John's talking about. One of the interesting things I feel like about OER is it's kind of like a small community. Sometimes it's growing, right? But it's like you kind of have to get to know the people that are in it, and you want to find people within, you know, the discipline or close to your discipline area so that you can network and get ideas for where to get things. It's interesting.
Who was it? Lisa saying somebody said that with the press book, or maybe it was Candace, that Candy, that it's updated, it's always updated, and it's available.
That was Stephanie. Yeah, I think Stephanie, you were talking about that.
What do you mean it's always updated? So like if I'm making the press book, then wouldn't I have to be the one to update it?
Yes, and what I was referring to is like when your students leave you and go on to their careers, if they had a question about something you had mentioned that was in their book, they would have it. And even if it's 4 years later and you're still using that book and you personally are updating it, they would still log in and see that brand new version or your latest edit all time. So it's always fresh.
Okay. How do they access it?
You can make your look, and probably Lisa, you might be able to explain this better than I about that, since I'm still fairly new, and then I'll follow up.
So what we did, Lynn, was we chose to make our book public. So anybody from around the world who Googles culture and psychology will land at the Mod Press books. But how my students access it, is that what you were curious about? How do my students get it? So what I did is I embedded the textbook. I did probably a lot more work than I needed to, but for every chapter, I put the link that they needed in their Canvas module. So they can just click on that link and then it will take them to, you know, an external window where they've got the content. But again, I did hear from a couple students who were like, I really want to print this. And so they still just go to the website, but at the bottom it says, how do you want this book? And you can download the book.
Okay.
And Lisa, I did the exact same thing in my course. I have the book right there in the Canvas module with each unit, and they can just click and get to it immediately. And I do have students that absolutely had to print it out each week as they go through, because they like to take notes on it, and they want that paper printout.
That sounds kind of like my colleague, some of you know Thomas Aubrey, who authored a book, but he's using, my gosh, I forget the name of the company right now, but it's very affordable. And it's that same way in that, you know, for each module, then you link just to that chapter, and then it has a quiz at the end and a journal at the end. And it's under $40, and it's, I mean, I've used it. I've taught a course with that once, and I thought it's got a lot of good characteristics, good qualities. And then he's constantly updating it too, and the publisher works with him to update it. And then they can bring in, it's almost like an OER, because they brought in some assessments from someplace else that they brought into that book.
I just want to double check on Catherine. I don't know if you've got any questions or if we got technology solved, or if you want to put anything in the chat. We would love to hear about your project. I totally just took over Carla and Brianna's job. I'm sorry about that.
I don't mind at all.
Either go ahead, Lisa. It's all yours.
I'm happy to share my book that you can see, and I could show you some things that I did in it. And then up, is it the next Friday, I believe it is, there is a key event happening. If you're interested in those quizzes at the end of the chapter, that would be a great place to do that. Let me share my screen here. Give me just a second here. Let me get rid of this down here.
And as Stephanie's putting that up, yes, it's the keynote workshop. So Alan Levine was on talking to us about H5Ps this morning. And so he's doing his workshop next week, Friday from 2 to 3:30. So it'll be a really awesome workshop to go to.
Okay, so this is a book I created for my students. I'll show you all the content here. Can you see that okay? Should I make it bigger? Is that good? I can see that well.
A bit bigger would be great if you could.
A bit bigger? Okay, let's go a little bigger.
You can just maximize or like full screen your browser. That'd be awesome. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So you can see here's all the chapters, and the problems I found with my students was that there was some OER books that were at a higher level and more than a 100 level course needed. So this is part taken from other shareable OER books and part written. So it's a mashup, which is the beauty of OER. So the one thing about the Pressbooks that I really love, let me shut this down right here. I'll just show you a sample chapter here. Let it go away. Okay. All right, so you have these color-coded textbooks, text boxes already built in where you can put in the learning objectives, and I wanted this book to read more like a consumer publication book and not a textbook. And also, I'm a visual person too, so I like color. You can add your videos in there. Anything I put in a blue box, I color-coded the entire textbook. This means that if it's a blue box, it's an activity, and I want my students to watch the video or do whatever quiz is in there. You'll notice this is called, I put it in as H5P, and there's many things. You can create hotspots, which I did not on this video, where it pops up and asks them a question. But this is just kind of what it looks like. You get to pick out the formatting for your book. And then here's the H5P that I created. They watched the video. I want to make sure they learned how long does your food stay in your digestive tract, right? And then what is peristalsis? So just simple things just to check their level of knowledge, which are really quick and easy to use. I've done this with students, and they are able to create these just following the samples that are provided within the Pressbook itself. And then here's a matching I created for them on the GI track. Again, finding a OER graphic to use that was properly licensed was sometimes a problem, but then it doesn't take you very much time at all to create these wonderful H5Ps, and you can send them out to other areas. And then I've got the learning objectives at the bottom in another text box color. So it's just really easy to use, and I've done this with students, and we've added students to chapters as well. And I encourage you, if you're considering it, to learn a little bit more about Pressbooks, and it might be something that you could incorporate into your course.
If you don't mind, Stephanie, I put the link to your book in the chat so they can take a closer look to it.
I don't want to take away from Lynn, but I have a couple questions for Stephanie, because I'm thinking about doing something similar for our stats materials. Like right now, all of that is totally paper pencil. So maybe turning that into, are you requiring the students demonstrate that they know how to match? Like I know in the workshop that you gave earlier, sometimes you can print and then do a PDF. Did you build in that link, or do you have separate assignments and this is just to help them learn? How do you mind sharing how you structured it?
Because those little H5Ps or activities aren't auto graded within Maricopa right now, so the option is print it out or take a photo of it and submit it for points. I decided it would be easier just to allow them the process of the joy of learning in the book. And then they have chapter questions that they have to complete those in order to answer them. And if they don't do it, they can't answer them. So that's my reality check for that part.
Thank you.
Lynn, do you have other questions or other problems that you've run into at the beginning of this? Because I remember when I first started out, I really felt like I was going it alone. I don't want you to feel that way, because there's lots of great supports, not just right here, right now, but just like literally all over the district.
Yeah, I definitely feel supported, especially right now with all of you. I think probably having some sort of mentor would be helpful. And I know Jose, and then our librarian for CPD and BHS has been great. I've worked with her on some things. She's new, Jackie Higgins Clark. She's been helpful though. So I feel like I can do that. And then hopefully with Kathy Mendoza, like you were saying, Jeff, part of the beauty of it is collaborating. So if I can get with the faculty member at PVCC and try to set up some time to meet with her, I still feel a little confused about how to begin. Except maybe what somebody said, just kind of what I'm doing already, just bringing something, supplementing. Maybe that's really how I begin. But I would like to look at that whole mod thing, and maybe I could even just start drafting something so that I can have that as a draft and build it.
And just to tell you, Lynn, like when you're using ModPress, because that's a great place to start, nobody will see it. It'll only be yours. So you don't have to be afraid about like, oh, I don't like how that chapter looks, or that's not really what I want to, right? You would still have to contact your mod admin at your college to get it even onto our catalog for anybody to see, right? So you just choose to keep it private, and you can work on it, and it's a continuous project, and nobody else will see it, and so you don't have to worry about it. Because I've had a lot of people from my college come to me like, well, I don't want everybody to see it. I'm still putting things together. I'm like, nobody will. Like, nobody will till we decide we're going to publish it, right? So this is really your beautiful own space where you can start, experiencing with it and working with it. And Jose is a great resource. And don't forget Cheryl from the CTL. Your CTLs are always going to be great resources too, and they know what's going on. And Cheryl and I have been working a lot with the ModPress, so I know she knows. Oh, okay. She's amazing.
Right.
Oh.
She is amazing. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing you can do too is just find a whole book that's OER and use it. I mean, it's like finding a regular paper book that you don't love all the parts of it initially, right? And then you start using it and decide which parts you do want to utilize and which parts you don't. We have sort of a famous / infamous one in history called the American Yawp that does all of American history. And like I always just put a link to that in my classes, just in general, because I'm like, if you're confused about anything, then just go to this big old-fashioned, kind of college textbook that's all online now. I mean, that's the only difference. It's every part of it is still like a traditional college textbook that they would buy in the bookstore. It just happens to be online now, and it's free, right? So that was kind of where I started when I really started. The other piece of advice I would give you is you learn more and more about the appropriate citing and all that, and it is good to have a mentor or to have somebody who's OER, because the more you learn about OER, the more you'll realize that a lot of people are breaking the rules of copyright and whatever within their classes right now in Canvas. And they're like, oh, all you have to do is just do this. And it's like, well, that's not actually legal, right? And you do kind of, when you get started, you're like, can I do this? Can I not do this? You ask yourself that a lot. right? Can I do this? Can I not do this? What kind of citation do I need here? What does this kind of level of attribution really mean? I mean, I find myself going back constantly looking up, like, is this the one I'm allowed to change, or is this the one where I have to take the whole thing and not make any changes to it? Because there's some intricacies of that copywriting. But I've tried to like not let that scare me either, right? Like if I do use something that I shouldn't have, like last semester or something, then I'm like, okay, I made a mistake and I shouldn't have used it that way. Now I'm going to fix it and I'm going to add the attribution correctly and whatever, and not like, you know, beat myself up for 2 years over the fact that I probably used a picture. Because honestly now, actually, the more I learned about OER too, like it is kind of awful. Like I watch people's PowerPoints all the time and like I'm always like, I bet they shouldn't have been using that picture. Like, because so many people aren't following the right attribution policies. I mean, even people that, you know, get paid to come in and speak and whatever, like I watch their PowerPoint sometime and I'm like, no, I looked at that picture because I Googled it and it wasn't legal to use and now it's in theirs. So you will experience some of that, and it's just part of this self-reflection, I guess. As you're going through it, you're learning more and more about what you can use, and like there's always this tiny little element of discomfort of, am I sure I can use this? Like you're always checking yourself on it. At least I am, and I'm pretty new to it. So, you know, I think that's a natural kind of place to be where you're like, wow, maybe I can't use this. And that's when sometimes you have to reach out and go, can I use this?
I would like to totally second that. Candace, I wish I had known you when I first started out doing OER, because I went through like all those same things and I had so much anxiety about it and I felt like I was already supposed to know. So first, yes, I would like to second that. And Lynn, I should tell you, I don't know when it's going to be offered again, but a while back, Maricopa did something where they had all these different OER trainings that you could attend. Those were put on by Matthew Bloom.
Yeah, I went to one at Gateway a few years back, and it was really interesting. I mean, I've been interested in OER, but I just haven't delved into it yet.
There's one that's devoted exclusively to Creative Commons licensing. So if they offer that again, you might appreciate it. Also, much earlier up in the chat, Lisa Worthy posted a link to the Creative Commons website, which is actually pretty user friendly. Like if you invest just kind of half an hour, 45 minutes poking around on there, they have some pretty good explanations of what the licenses mean. And once you get familiar with the symbols and what they mean, then you can use some of these other resources that people are sharing and search it and say, you know, show me content that is CC BY, or show me content that is remixable. And it makes your job easier of finding content that is licensed in a way that you can use it. And again, just a second, what Candace said, you know, obviously you and I are in different departments, but we're both at GCC. So if you ever want to chat about licensing, and Lisa, you know, I'm not the be all end all expert on it, but I'm sure between the three of us, we could probably get it figured out. So, you know, hopefully we can all continue to network in that regard.
Yeah, and this is John again, third that, if you will, and definitely do talk to your library folk too. I know, Eric, you know, you might know this too. There's what, 80, 90 some librarians this spring are taking a workshop series on copyright and licensing from a copyright librarian at Harvard. We just did our first workshop last week. And so we are kind of going to spend 8 weeks getting up to speed on copyright and licensing issues. So, and I think it's almost every college that I'm aware of, when I was looking down through the list, are in there: ASU, U of A, Maricopa, NAU. I think I saw Pima. I think I saw Northland Pioneer. So yeah, find the people that are playing the game and know the answers. And if they don't know the answer, they can at least maybe call the guy in Harvard who seems to know all the answers. Yeah.
And Lynn, the OER Starter Seminar Series was kind of part of this conference, and they were all recorded. So if you didn't have a chance to go to a lot of them, you'll be able to find that on the website, right? Like the MTLI conference agenda website, and I can put that in the chat again. But you can find the recordings there. And Matthew did do a couple of workshops not last year. Yeah, last year. I don't even know where you were. Yes, last fall. And we did them online. And I know we're going to continue doing that as being on the OER steering committee. We already talked about we're going to be doing more workshops as such, especially because one thing, and I'm part of the subcommittee for the ModPass, where we talked about, I don't think enough people know about, they want to do it, but they don't know enough to be able to apply for the grant, right? So we want to offer more opportunities for you to get up to speed to be able to apply for grants and help you out with that as well.
Great. Thank you, everybody. This has been really nice. I am so appreciative of all of your expertise and willingness to focus your attention on my project. And now I've got people I can talk to and ask about this. And then hopefully we'll be back on campus in the fall and I can actually walk over to the LS or walk over to Jeff's honors and say, hey.
So I need to skip out, but I just wanted to say it was very nice to see all of your very familiar faces and to meet some new OER enthusiasts. You guys have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks. Yeah, this went just till 3, right? So we're at the end of it. Okay. Well, thank you again, everybody. I look forward to jumping into this. So appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lynn. It was great having you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Jeff. Okay, bye-bye.